Hello, so now I'm going to record Daf Ayin Hey Part 2. Before we start, I just want to point something out. The last thing we discussed was that according to Rabba Bar Rav Huna, when you salt meat, especially for a long trip, then it's considered tanning. The question is, why is it not also called Makeh B'Patish? Actually, one of my boys called me today and asked me a kasha. Yesterday we learned that somebody who makes a barrel is doing 7 malachos, but if he makes not a barrel but a stove, he does 8 malachos, because by coating the inside of the stove so that it insulates the heat, that's called Makeh B'Patish. So why, when you put the barrel into the oven, is that also not called Makeh B'Patish? That's an important question, because Rashi answers, Makeh B'Patish is only when you do an act, and that act finishes the product. But when you do an act of lining the inside of a stove with insulation material, that's the act that finishes the product. On the other hand, when you put the barrel into the stove, it's not finished until it finishes heating and hardening. So then it's not called Makeh B'Patish, because your act of putting it in doesn't finish the Makeh B'Patish. A Makeh B'Patish means it has to be finished with your act. It's complex. I mean, like baking and cooking doesn't get finished with your act. You're chayav for putting the food on the fire. Planting, the act doesn't get finished with your act. You put the seed in the ground, but it takes time for it to take root. But Makeh B'Patish, the finishing blow has to be finished when you give that blow. So consequently, when you salt food, even though it gets hardened, but it only gets hardened later, but it doesn't get hardened at the point where you salted it, and therefore that's not called Makeh B'Patish. Okay, we're up to V'hamamachkai, about 15 lines down, Amud Beis. Hamamachkai v'hamachatchai, when you smooth leather or you cut leather to size, so those are two malachos. Amar of Acha Bar Chanina, mysterious statement. Hashaf bein amudim, somebody who rubs between the pillars b'Shabbos, chayv mishum mamachik, is chayv from mamachik. So Rashi says, let's say you have pillars that are holding up a horizontal structure, and between one pillar and the other, the ground is unsmooth. So let's say if you walk back and forth in order to smooth the ground, or even maybe use a tool to smooth it, so you chayv from mamachik. So Rabbeinu Chananel and other Rishonim argue with Rashi, because we learned before that let's say there's a hole that you fill, or there's something high that you take off in order to smooth it. So in a house that's called baina, and outside that's called chayrish. So how does Rashi get to mamachik? So they have a different shot, the Rabbeinu Chananel and the other Rishonim. They say it's speaking when you take a piece of leather and you rub it against the pillar. Hashaf bein amud means you rub leather on a pillar, and there you're chayav for mamachik. But the Ran asks on that pshat, because then what's pshat? You're chayav mishum mamachik. That is mamachik. Taking leather, rubbing it against a stone body, that's mamachik. That's a chayav mishum mamachik. So the Korban Nesanel answers everybody's problems. He says, Loilam, it could be that the Rabbeinu Chananel, though the Rishonim are right, because usually mamachik would be to smooth it, to remove the hair from the hide. Here, after the hair has been removed and you're still rubbing it to smooth the leather, is chayiv mishum mamachik. It's chayiv because it is similar to the mamachik, which was removing of the hair. As far as Rashi's issue, the Korban Nesanel again goes to defend Rashi, and he says if you have a hole in the ground that you fill, or you have a lump on the ground that you remove, that could be baina if it's interior, or chayrish in a field. But if there's no hole and no bump, it's just rough, so then it would actually be mamachik. Amar B'chia bar Abba shloisha dvarim sachli Rav Asi mishmei Rav Yeshua ben Levi. He told me 3 things in the name of Rav Yeshua ben Levi. Hamegore rashe kloinosais b'Shabbos. If you have poles that you sand or scrape the point of it to make it pointy and even, chayv mishum mechatach, because then you're cutting it to size. Hamamarech rati, if you have a bandage with something that smears, and you smear it b'Shabbos HaShabbos, chayv mishum mamachik, you're chayv for smoothing it out, for smoothing it. V'hamasate says even b'Shabbos chayv mishum makeh b'Patish. If you have stone and you chisel it to make it smooth, then you're chayv for makeh b'Patish. That's the final act. Amar Rabbi Shimon and Kisva, Amar Rabbi Shimon Lakish, Atzar Tzura B'Kli. If you make a picture on a finished utensil, v'hamenapeach b'Kli zchuchis, or if there's glass that's been melted and you blow in it in order to form it, chayv mishum makeh b'Patish. So you're chayv because that's the finishing blow. Why are you not chayv for baina? Because ain't binyan b'kelim. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Haiman de Shakal Akufi Meglimi. Somebody who takes things off a garment, like little pieces of sticks or extra threads, finishing. Chayv mishamaka b'patish. That's the final act that finishes the garment. Hanimili to kapit alayu. It's only maka b'patish if it's something that people mind. But if something that people don't mind, so it's not maka b'patish. It's good without it. HaKoisev shtei oisius, if you write 2 letters, you're chai for koisev, and if you erase a space to be able to write 2 letters, you're also chai for moichik. Tana Rabbanan, the Rabbanan taught in a brayso, kosav ois achas gedoyla v'yesh b'mkayim elichlev shtayim poter. If you write 1 big letter, but the letter is so big you could have written 2 letters, you're poter, because you're not chai for writing unless you actually write 2 letters. But mochak ois gedoyla v'yesh b'mkayim elichlev shtayim, if you erased 1 large letter, but now there's room to write 2, you're chayiv, because you erased a space where you can write 2 letters. Amar Rabbi Menachem Rabbi Yosi zechayim Rabbi Moichik mebekaisav. So that's a stringency in erasing more than writing. In writing, you're only chayiv if you actually write the 2 letters. In erasing, you can even erase 1 letter as long as now you made space to write 2 letters. Habayna v'asaiser, to build and demolish. Hamchabe v'amavir, to extinguish and to light a fire. V'maka b'patish. Rabba v'Rabzer Damar Tarbai Kol Midi Dis Begmar Malacha, any act which now completes a utensil or an object, Chayiv Mishamaka B'Patish, is called Maka B'Patish, the final hammer blow. Elu Ovis Malachas, these are 39 Ovis Malachas, and Elu, the word Elu meaning these, which taught us that you can be Chayiv 39 Chatois, Lapuki Mid Rabbi Eliezer, the Mechayiv Al Tolde B'Mokamav. Tells you it's not like Rabbi Eliezer, because Rabbi Eliezer holds when you do a tolda and a nav, you chayiv 2 chatois. But our Mishnah says there's 39 avos, and all the toldas that you'll do of any av are all included in that av. So our Mishnah says that it's 39 and a maximum of 39, does not agree with Rabbi Eliezer, who says you can have more than 39 when you do toldas. Chaser achas, it's 39 less 1, lafuki mid Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya within the Brayso, Rabbi Yehuda moisef as hashovet. The word hashovet is, when you arranged the threads on the loom, sometimes 1 thread is on top of another, sometimes 2 threads are sticking together. So shayvet is taking a very thin utensil and separating between the threads. Now medagdek is to knock when you actually started weaving and you have your cross threads going back and forth, you need to bang on them in order to unite them together with the fabric that's already been woven. So he says those are 2 extra malachos. Amrullah, the Chamim disagreed with Rabbi Yehuda and said, Shayvet harehu b'chlal mesach. Mesach was when you made the threads that go across the loom, and included in setting the threads across the loom is to make sure that the threads are not one on top of the other or sticking together. So the tool, this shayvet that you do in order to make the threads apart, is part of the malacha of mesach. And medagdek harehu b'chlal oyrig. Medagdik, when you bang on the threads that went back and forth and you push them so that they're part of the larger fabric, that's part of oyrig, that's part of weaving. It's not a separate malacha. Look, the mission of Oid Klal Acher Amru, another rule was said in Shabbos, Kol HaKosher Latzniya, any object which is an object which one does put aside, it has some value. Umatzniyan Kamayu, and the volume of the object that you have is a volume which is important enough for people to put aside. But it's here b'Shabbos, and you carry that out from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus Rabbim b'Shabbos, you're chayiv chatas olav, you're chayiv chatas. Even if you alone would never have bothered with that commodity, or the volume of it, the size of it is too small for you to have bothered, but if common practice is that people keep stuff like that because it's important enough for them, you're chayiv for taking it out. On the other hand, because any commodity or object which is not really a valuable object, or it is a valuable object, but the amount of it is so small that nobody would bother with it. But it's here b'Shabbos, if you carry out on Shabbos, and the chayiv elam atzniyoy. You're only chayiv if you actually took the time and effort once to put it aside or to treasure it. So then, since you treasured it, you're chayiv if you carry it out. And you can be mechayiv for something you treasure yourself. But things that generally are treasured, you're chayiv for carrying it out, even if you're such a wealthy man that you would never treasure an object like that. What is excluded from the words kosher latzniya? What is something that nobody would bother putting aside? Rav Papa says lafuki dam nida. Nobody puts aside the dam nida unless you want to show it as a shaila. Marukva amar lafuki atzei asherah, to exclude wood from an asherah tree, which is aser ba'ana. Since it's aser ba'ana, nobody puts that stuff aside. Mandomer dam nida, the one that says dam nida is never put aside. Kol shken atzei asherah, because atzei asherah is miyas and it's aser ba'ana, and there's an obligation to destroy it. So certainly nobody puts aside Atzei Asherah. Mandam or Atzei Asherah, the one that says that Atzei Asherah is something no one puts aside. Aval dam nida matzna leila shonara. But blood is something a person might put aside for a cat. So therefore, since somebody might put it aside, maybe it is something you'd be chayiv for being mitzi. V'yidach Rav Papa, who says that dam nida is not something people are matzniya, this strange business. There's given the cholsha. If the cat would consume it, it could be harmful to the person who the blood came from. Is lematzna, people don't put that aside, it's dangerous, and they just get rid of it. Now in the Mishnah we learned that anything that the general population feels is an object and a volume which is important enough to put aside, you're chayiv when you carry it out, even though you would not have valued it yourself. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, Hai Deloi Ki Rabbi Shimon. This does not correspond to Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon, because according to Rabbi Shimon, Ha'omar Lo Amru Kol HaShiurim Alalu. There are various shiurim of commodities that are said later, are only said Elo L'Matzniyayin, only for people who actually put it aside. But if you're somebody who wouldn't put it aside, even though others would put that shiur aside, you're not going to be chayiv. So we have a full-blown machlokes between our Mishnah versus Rabbi Shimon. According to our Mishnah, anything that people would normally consider valuable, you're chayiv for carrying out. And Rabbi Shimon says you're only chayiv if you would value it enough to put it aside. But if you wouldn't value it to put it aside, you're not chayiv for carrying it out. Okay, everybody should be well. Good night, and hope to see you soon. Things are opening up slowly. Hopefully the Beit Midrashim will open slowly soon, and we'll be able to learn in person.